Hello, everybody! In this video, I'm going to go over some of the basic information for one of the most important things for disc golf, the discs. This includes some of the terminology, what disc flight numbers are, what discs I carry, and why I carry them.
My name is Kevin, and I play disc golf.
One of the first things you may be asking yourself is, what's the difference between a Frisbee and a disc golf disc? Well, let's take a little step back and look at a broader marketing concept here. One of the best things that can happen from the marketing perspective of a company is to have their brand name become the default description by the public for a trademark of theirs. A few examples of this include that Band-Aid is the trademark name for adhesive bandages, Ziploc is the trademark name for resealable plastic bags, Kleenex for tissues, or Scotch tape for clear plastic tape. If you can think of any others that I'm missing from this list, like Tupperware for resealable plastic containers, place them in the comments section below. The world of flying discs has one of the most prevalent, where Whammo's trademark name of Frisbee has become the general default term used for flying discs for the general public, even if the item being used is not made or manufactured by Whammo. If you've played catch with a flying disc of some sort before, they are generally designed to be comfortable to both throw and catch. There are some trade-offs here, usually distance or accuracy for comfort. In college, I would frequently find a friend who was bored in the dorm. We'd use a high-quality disc designed for ultimate Frisbee, and we'd go to the main quad on campus and stand 150 feet or so apart and throw it back and forth to each other for a couple hours. It was a reasonably good way to meet people, get some exercise, and occasionally people would be a bit confused until they realized that a Frisbee really could be thrown that far. These discs designed for Ultimate were also good to do various tricks with to impress onlookers or to amuse ourselves. These discs typically have a diameter of 10 3/4 inches and usually have a mass of 160 to 175 grams. The next type of disc that you are probably familiar with are the free promotional discs, usually stamped with a company name on it, such as this one. These do not fly particularly far and are not particularly accurate, but they are the right size for dogs to comfortably catch in their mouths. These are generally about 9 inches in diameter and are much lighter than other discs. For a disc to officially be used in Professional Disc Golf Association tournaments, the diameter must be between 21 centimeters and 30 centimeters, or between 8 1/4 inches and 11 3/4 inches, be no more than 200 grams, and cannot be more than 8.3 grams per centimeter of outside disc diameter. It also must go through an approval process for tournament use. If you want a full list of what is PDGA tournament legal, a complete list can be found on the PDGA website at pdga.com. The three biggest advantages of discs designed specifically for disc golf are distance, flight paths, and materials. For distance, disc golf discs will generally travel much farther. I took a hiatus of about 7 years from playing disc golf, and the single biggest change was how much farther the new discs are capable of flying compared to the old discs. For the flight paths, different discs can have different flight paths or patterns that can be used to avoid different obstacles. Especially on discs that are designed for short distances, the material of the disc can be designed to better stick to the chains and stay in the basket, reducing the likelihood of hitting the chains but not ending up in the basket. The biggest downside is that the overwhelming majority of disc golf discs hurt to catch. There are a few exceptions that are designed for short distances that you can play catch without hurting your hand, but most will be quite painful to catch. If we look at the side profiles, the Fido disc is much taller and much rounder, where the disc golf disc has a very sharp edge and, again, will hurt to catch. Now we'll get into some frequently used terminology around the discs themselves. A putter is a golf disc that is used primarily for short distances. This will be the disc that you probably use the most often and is the least likely to hit a tree. Generally, these are used within about 75 feet of the basket. An approach disc is a disc that's generally designed to get shots close to the basket. There's a lot of overlap with approach discs and putters, as you'll see from the discs that I use. These only occasionally hit trees. These are discs that I would typically use for shots from 75 to 150 feet away. Most of the older discs I have are now considered mid-range discs. These will usually hit a tree after traveling most of their distance. I'll generally use these for shots from 125 to 225 feet, where a specific type of shot is required to avoid obstacles. When I need to throw as far as I can, fairway drivers are my primary option. These I can generally throw 200 feet or more pretty consistently. There are a few different options I have for specific flight paths. These are what I usually use on tee shots and are very likely to hit trees. Distance drivers are generally for more advanced players for maximum distance. These usually require more arm speed than what I have to get any benefit out of them. These are most likely to hit the first available tree when traveling at a high rate of speed. The backhand is the most traditional throwing style. When you think of throwing a frisbee, this is generally the type of throw that's most common. A forehand or sidearm is a type of throw where your arm does not go across your body and generally remains in front of you. A roller is a type of throw that's designed to land on its edge and keep rolling. The longest throw I ever had was a roller on a ball golf course fairway on a long down gradual slope with a slight tailwind that turned the disc into a sail when it was rolling. It went about 400 feet. A tomahawk is an overhand throw where the first part of the flight has the disc vertical, then eventually rotates so it flies and lands upside down. This is usually used to get through thick brush or to go over trees. A death putt is any putt that has a high probability of something very bad happening if you miss, usually meaning it has the potential to roll a long way downhill or go out of bounds if you miss the basket. Now that we have some of the vocabulary, what the heck do these numbers on a disc golf disc mean? The four numbers in order represent speed, glide, turn, and fade. Though there is some inconsistency in the exact rating between manufacturers, these can give you a good idea of a type of flight that you may be looking for. Speed, usually numbered between 1 and 14, is in relation to how thick the rim of the disc is. Usually a thicker rim will fly farther but have less control and require more natural arm speed to get the most out of it. Most putters will have a speed of 4 or less, approach discs between 3 and 6, mid-ranges between 5 and 8, fairway drivers between 8 and 11, and distance drivers 11 and above. Glide, numbered 1 to 7, describes how good the disc maintains loft during flight. A higher number will usually mean the disc will float through the air further, but is more susceptible to windy conditions. Turn, numbered +1 to -5, describes how much the disc wants to bank to the right for a right-hand backhand thrower during the initial part of the flight where the disc is traveling the fastest. The more negative the number, the more it will want to turn to the right for right-hand backhand. Fade, numbered 0 to 5, is the tendency for the disc to move to the left for a right-hand backhand thrower at the end of the flight when the disc slows down. The higher the number, the more it will hook at the end. A fade of 0 to 1 is most likely to slide along the ground straight ahead. A fade of 2 to 3 will likely skip left for right-hand backhand throws after hitting the ground at the end of the flight. And a fade of 4 to 5 is more likely to land vertically and spike into the ground at the end of the flight. Some notes on the flight numbers. They're not totally consistent among manufacturers and are designed to show how a disc will fly when it's taken out of the box for the first time. Every time a disc hits something, be it a ground, a rock, a tree, or a basket, the plastic will slightly deform and change the characteristics slightly. If you have thrown a disc for a year and finally figured out how to throw it the way you want, a brand new identical disc may not fly the same. The single biggest advancement has been in the plastic compounds used in the last 10 years. The plastics are much more durable now as long as you're getting what are known as premium plastics. These are generally more expensive, but also more durable. Here I have the MVP Terra. There is a spot right there that is fairly heavily damaged. This is in their baseline electron plastic. And here we have the MVP trail, where the biggest scuff I have here is right along this edge right here in their more premium neutron plastic. I've actually hit many more trees with the trail than I have with the Terra, but just also in general, you can see how much more beat up the plastic on the Terra is in the less premium plastic than on the trail in the more premium plastic. Because of this durability, when you're buying discs, I would recommend looking for premium plastics for drivers and mid-ranges where you're more likely to hit trees. Approach discs and putters are more about feel and ability to stick to the chains in the basket when you hit them, so here you often want the softer plastics as you're less likely to be throwing the discs into trees. For weights, generally heavier discs will be more consistent and more predictable in the wind at a cost of distance. A lighter disc can be thrown further, but is harder to control. One final consideration about buying discs. Generally, you want to go for discs that are bright, obnoxious colors because they're a lot easier to find. White, pink, bright orange, and fluorescent yellow and fluorescent green are easy to find, relatively speaking, where things like brown, black, dark blue, and purple are not as easy to find in the woods. The one disc that I lost last year was a black roller that I threw to the wrong basket in the middle of a field that went over the crest of a hill and disappeared. I didn't particularly like that disc and knew the risk when I threw it, but I'm pretty confident that I would have been able to find it quickly had it been a different color. Now on to the main part of this video, my discs. My primary putter is an Axiom Pixel in electron soft plastic with flight numbers of 2, 4, 0, 0.5, weighing 171 grams. This is one of 5 discs that I bought after playing a couple of rounds with discs that were 10 plus years old, and I decided I really needed something better for putting. This was it. Next is the Innova Aviar 2301, 171 grams. For whatever reason, I never really liked this as a putting putter, but I do occasionally use it for approach shots. This is one of the best-selling discs of all time. Next is the Discraft Rattler at 2, -2, 1. This was the first real putter I ever got, and though it is now tacoed and flies with horrific fade, so if we look at it from the side here, we can see it's not exactly flat anymore. There are rare occasions that I still use this when I need a shot to hook around trees. My IBR was a failed attempt to replace this. Another failed attempt to replace the Rattler was the Millennium Omega Super Soft Putter 2300. This, as the name suggests, is a super soft putter that I have figured out how to throw short distance where it will land flat and not roll away while still allowing a chance to make it into the basket. Next on to my mid-ranges. The Innova Rock 4403, 177 grams. This is, again, one of the most popular approach in mid-range discs, and I find that it flies straight and true. When I need a straight shot 150 feet uphill, this is what I go to. And next is the Discraft Stratus 54 -41 with 100 at 164 grams. When I want something super understable, this is it. Now we get to the section of disc golfs have changed a lot over the years. Many of these were considered distance drivers at the time I bought them. Starting with the distance, one of the first ones I bought that's so old I was unable to find any flight numbers listed for it. Many of the discs that I have don't have the flight numbers printed on them. However, I was able to look them up and find flight numbers for all the discs except for this one. Here it is, the Discraft Deuce, 176 grams. At this point, I use this mostly for tomahawks through the trees and thick brush. If you can find flight numbers for this anywhere, please let me know and post them in the comments. This disc may actually be older than some of you watching this. Next, Lightning Discs number 2 hook shot at 170 grams. This is an oldie that has met a lot of trees and has an incredible amount of fade. The original numbers on this were 5.5, -1.3. However, again, this has met a lot of trees and is tacoed as well. So if I need to throw 150 to 170 feet straight ahead, then make a 90-degree turn, this disc will do it. The stamp lists this as, if you notice, a long-range overstable driver. Next up is the Lightning Disc number 3 slice at 6.5, -3.1 at 167 grams. This disc has gotten less understable over the years of tree hits, but it's still useful for a 150 to 170 foot shot that has a slight understable turn to it with virtually no turn at the end of the flight. Note here that the stamp lists this as a mid-range understable driver. Next, we move on to the Lightning Discs number 1 slice at 7.4, -3.2 at 172 grams. I don't use this very often anymore, but it is good at holding its angle of release through the flight. It's useful when I have to go around trees. Note here that the stamp lists this as a maximum distance driver. Compared to today's discs, this is not even close. And next we have the Discraft Elite Extreme Overstable Driver, 6314, back from when everything was extreme. I use this for a 3/4 arm overhand forehand shot where I need an S-bend around trees for about a 200-foot distance. At one time, this was the disc I could throw the farthest at about 225 feet. Though it seems like an oddly specific set of circumstances for it to work, there are 2 holes in particular where this is the ideal disc for the tee shot, at New England College Hole 3 and WLC Disc Golf Course Hole 11. Now on to my drivers, starting with the Latitude 64 River in optoplastic at 7.7, -1.1 at 167 grams. With its very high 7 glide rating, I've figured out how to throw this disc with the proper angle of release when I need to go around a corner about 200 feet up the fairway, and it will still glide a long way after it finishes most of its direction change. Though this may technically be classified as a mid-range and fairway driver, I end up using it off the tee more often than for approach shots. These last 4 discs are the 4 that I throw the furthest, and all 4 were purchased last summer. The MVP Terra at 8.5, -0.5, 2.5 at 173 grams in electron plastic. I figured out how to throw this about 200 feet using the skip at the end to my advantage. I use this as a mid-range more than as a fairway driver, but have gotten pretty accurate with it when I need to go around trees to get close to the pin. Next up is the Innova Sidewinder at 9.5, -3.1 in DX plastic. The good news is that this is the disc that I can currently throw the farthest in my bag. The downside is that it requires a huge amount of lateral space to get all of that distance out of the disc. It's still useful for some of the S-shaped shots that occasionally pop up that are too far for the Discraft Elite Extreme, or shots that are completely open, but unfortunately it's not as useful on the tight confines of the typical New England's woods golf course that I play on. Next, the MVP Trail at 10.5, -1.1, 170 grams in neutron plastic. The hype is real. This is my go-to disc off the tee or for long fairway throws at the maximum end of my range. It's easy to throw, it flies flat, straight, and far, and with a little bit of fade skip at the end, and it's receptive to throwing on slightly different angles of release. This is a disc that I won't throw on a shot that has a high chance of losing a disc because I really don't want to lose this one. Finally, we have the MVP Zenith at 11.5, -0.52, 186 grams in neutron plastic. This is the disc that really showed me the power of the newer generation of premium plastics. I like this a lot, though it is a bit more touchy than the Trail, and as primarily a right-handed forehand thrower, it needs a little bit more room to go left than the Trail does. I can throw it slightly farther than the Trail, but the minimal change in distance for my throws from the 9-speed Sidewinder to the 11-speed Zenith leads me to believe that I've kind of found the limit of my arm speed. For my bag itself, It's an old red canvas computer bag for an oversized laptop from many years ago. It has a slot where I put my 4 putt and approach discs in the front, and I have the main part of the bag I use for the remainder of my discs. In addition to the discs themselves, I carry a couple of rags, a thermos of water, usually a few snacks. I have a battery backup power source to make sure I don't run out of power when filming, and I carry a Sharpie. Oh, Sharpie! Hey, that's another brand name that has turned itself into a generic product from a brand name. Sure, a fancy disc or golf bag or backpack is nice, but it's not a requirement for having fun playing disc golf. I used to use a reusable cloth grocery bag, and that served perfectly adequately for many years. The big takeaway here should be that you can have fun playing disc golf, and no one really cares whether or not you have the newest bag or discs. My next video will be getting into the main part of the idea of this channel. If you have any courses in particular that you would like to see first that are in southwestern New Hampshire, let me know and post it in the comments. Much like my spice rack, we're almost out of time, so like, share, and subscribe now.